Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another bonus episode of the Missing Lynx post-game live stream podcast thing. I'm Andrew Dukowitz of Zone Coverage, and we got a new beat reporter for the Minnesota Lynx, who is not here in video but is here in voice and spirit. Britt Robson from Racket.com. How's it going, man?
I'm well, thanks.
First, I do have to say, never having to go another 5 months of my basketball journalism career without seeing Britt Robson is a very nice additive thing to my life. So I'm so excited that you're on the beat with us.
Yeah, well, it's been fun. I've been wanting to cover the Lynx for quite a while. I will confess to being, telling people I needed a life when they first started to talk to me about covering the Lynx way back when. And even during their, real run where they won like 4 and 7 years, I was tempted, but it was one of those things where my son was younger, and I cover the Wolves all the time. And I also back then wrote about politics as well, and I wrote about music. So I just thought, no. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, I started to get interested in doing it, or maybe even 5 or 6 years ago, whatever it was. When I was with The Athletic for a while, I thought that would be a good forum to do it. And they were still getting their in-house Maine people together. And, I knew I didn't have enough knowledge to cover the league. I wanted to cover the Lynx, and they hadn't formulated beats on teams yet. And then by the time I think they had their act together, I was among the people dumped in the big freelance purge, and then went back to MinPost. And of course, Pat Borsey has been with MinPost for a long time covering them. And I was told when I went back there that Pat's beat is the Lynx and women's Gopher volleyball. So at 2 great beats, by the way. And so anyway, never had the chance. Racket got in touch with me toward the end of the NBA season and asked if I could write a column about like a primer for people who didn't know all that much about the Wolves as to what to look forward to there. And I just said, I write about the Wolves for MinPost, and I don't think it's good to mix that in the local market. And they asked about podcasts, and I said, I've got, for the Wolves. And I said, I'm on with Dane Moore once a week for that. So they said, well, if there's anything, you want to do for us in terms of sports, let us know. And about 3 weeks later, I started thinking about it. And I said, yeah, I would love to. This is a chance to do that. I had a couple of trips already scheduled with my family, and they were finally over around end of June. And so I said, let's start the coverage July 1st. And they said, you want to write a column twice a month? I said, that sounds perfect. And here we are. I've done one, and I'll do another one in probably about 10 days.
What was kind of what sparked you to get into the covering the Lynx now? Like, is it just?
Well, I mean, like I said, I do think the Lynx, they've always, Cheryl Reeve has always impressed me. I'm at the age now where I'm more coach-centric than I am player-centric, just because I relate to them better. But I also think that her brand of basketball is always very, very honest. She has fundamentals. They exercise those fundamentals. Most of the time they overachieve. But at the very least, she's a clear communicator with the media as well as with the players. And she's a bit of a control freak, which I don't mind, because those people do tend to let you know what's on their mind. And so I thought it would be a fun team to cover. Everybody says, oh, you're on board with Olivia Miles. But frankly, Olivia Miles was without a doubt a draw. But I really have been captivated. I started watching the team like every night during COVID, back when Dangerfield, I think, was a rookie, that kind of quasi lost season. And then, dialed it back to maybe half of their games 2 or 3 years after that, which had mixed things. But anyway, for this, I was loving the way Natasha Howard interacted with Olivia. I thought the pick and roll was textbook a lot of the time. And it's just a beautiful play when it's done right. The fact that this team is undersized and was out rebounding often the other team and scoring more points in the paint than the other team, just that kind of David and Goliath feel of it, that they were not large anymore. They didn't have Alana or Jessica Shepard, and yet they were still very paint-centric. They don't have Fee, obviously. It just felt like an interesting band. And, since I've started covering them, I don't know, obviously I haven't been on the beat, so I haven't covered them before. But the mental health of this team is off the charts. I mean, it is the healthiest group of athletes I've ever coached. I mean, ever covered. And so, that's been extremely fun for me to see is, the ability to know your role, to play your role, to know when you need to slightly step out your role, to cock some seam, to know when you've screwed up, to not get too down about it. It's just a very, very healthy team in terms of its self-awareness, in terms of its desire to see the team succeed over the individual succeeding. It's just in that respect, it's been a joy to be on the inside of what they're doing as opposed to just watching from the outside.
I mean, you're spot on. Like, that's the 3 years that I've been credentialed covering them. That's just been the hallmark of these teams, is that everybody buys in, everybody is kind of a star in their role. It's always the team first. I mean, you've covered a lot of coaches. Like, how much of that comes from like a Cheryl Reeve versus just a team being mentally made up that way?
I think it's very, very hard not to give Cheryl Reeve a lot of credit. But I think it's also important that she understands that she is an emblem of culture. And so that she believes that she needs to bring the culture along. It started, Simone Augustus or whatever, you pick Katie Smith, you can pick, but in terms of winning, it was that, that run that really set the culture. And I do think that, you watch this team pregame now, Kosu is being mentored by, University of Minnesota great, in Janet and by Rebecca Brunson, I mean, that's just couldn't get to better people if you're, 21-year-old raw, but promising big. Lindsay Whalen, working with not only Liv, but, the various other guards. After being a coach on the floor for many years and then a coach in college for a few years. And just, I think that, the son of, Thibodeau's son,
Eric.
there. Yeah. That is somebody else who knows about culture, who knows about institutional memory and mores and how we do things around here, type of thing. And I think if these things are not shrieked, they're just exhibited. That is the best way to brute your culture. And I think that's what impresses people, and that's what gets them in the fold in that mentally healthy way I was talking about. Is this is something that is bigger than anybody who's individually here. And I can be a part of that too. I just think that that's a powerful force. And so I think that may be one of the reasons why you have this situation where people don't mind. I mean, put it this way, Liv has a huge ego. and she really, in a different circumstance, left uncurbed, that ego might be too much. There may be too much swagger on the court. She may be trying, and she, every now and then you see it now where she'll take a shot or make a move. Cheryl referred to it the other night when she said, the last time they played Phoenix, she got whatever she wanted to. And you kind of felt like there were a few times, last night where she thought that was going to happen again. And that's a good arrogance to have when you're young and a rookie and as talented as she is. But it's also very, very helpful to have a curbing effect of the culture around to make that work. And so it isn't just that mediocre players get elevated by concentrating on what they do. It's that potentially fantastic players get molded in not so much a downsizing way, but in a fit way. Liv is fitting in a way that wasn't eminently predictable before. I mean, she's the team's leading scorer, but you don't immediately think of her as a shooter. You don't immediately think of her as a scorer. And it oftentimes she'll pick and choose her spots. But I think everybody would say that shooting is not the first thing you think of when you think of her. And so, these are all important things. And then, she does try to play defense. And that's also, extremely important to have somebody that talented at one end of the floor trying to be a well-rounded player. So I think all of that builds into it. And then I think, Cheryl does have a tremendous amount of experience, obviously, but also a knowledge. She has mellowed in a way that is a very smart way to mellow, which is that she continues to lock in what she wants to have happen. She's not mellowing in a relaxation way. She's mellowing in, all right, I still want to get my objectives accomplished. Is this objective going to be better with honey or better with lemon? And I think that she chooses honey more than she used to. And I think that she enjoys that not only because it works, but because it's a sign of her own evolution. And I think she's proud of herself. And that's a great thing to be able to say about yourself when you're, a quarter century down the road, is that you're evolving, you're changing with the times to some extent, but you're also changing with your evolving skill set. I mean, she's married, she's got a kid now who was there, at the post-game press conference the other night, without too much awkwardness. And, the whole thing I just think is, I'll just repeat what I said at the beginning, is that I just think that team and that organization is in a really good place right now. And it's a very healthy place for everybody associated with it, as best I can tell. I mean, like I said, I've been around for 2 weeks, so I could be, just the idea of, the zealot of the kind of convert or something. But I do see it as something that it has reinforced the idea that it was a good decision to start to cover this team.
It's so interesting that you talk about like the Cheryl Reeve evolution, because Courtney Williams talks about it all the time, that like she didn't know the old Cheryl Reeve. Like Courtney showed up and this is just the Cheryl that was here. And I kind of feel the same way. Like I got here on the beat like 2 weeks before Courtney, and the only like firsthand knowledge I have is Cheryl is like the witty, charming, sarcastic, tells you how it is, but also sprinkles in dry humor with it. And I guess just can you speak more about like that personality shift? Like what were you, I guess, what was kind of the expectation or the outsider like view of Cheryl 5 years ago compared to where it is now? Because I feel like Cheryl has really kind of done a 180 in just how she, I don't know if it's just how she approaches media, but I mean, her team talks about her the same way, that she's just fun now.
Well, I think some of it may be that she was disappointed in some of the decisions she made. You know, I mean, she brought some people onto the team that didn't pan out the way she thought they would. And I think that that shone through. I can't remember. I wish I was better with names about this. There was a wing player that was regarded as a combo guard that played right around that same time. And, it's just, I feel like when somebody doesn't work out, I think she tries various methods to get them to work out, but one of the methods is to be hard on them. And if they can't handle that, or if they respond differently, then she is somebody who's always been relatively brutally honest with people because she feels like it's the best way to do things. I just think that, you aren't, when you've had the ratification of 4 rings and, executive of the year now, as well as coach of the year, Hall of Fame now, obviously most wins, all these things that have come rolling in lately, those are all reinforcements of your instincts. But when you're in a period of time, or say, like, for example, when, it could be argued, you won some rings, but you won them with a super team. You won them with Maya Moore and Lindsay Whalen and Sylvia Fowles, and the hits just keep on coming. And you also lost some with those players. And so I think that having this group come up, and not even this year, but 2 or 3 years ago, having that situation where you play the Liberty in the finals and you had the best team in the NBA in the regular season last year. So this is the 3rd year of kind of a post-superstar era. I mean, not that Thea isn't a superstar, but she's kind of was the only one on the roster. I just think that it was, again, more reinforcement for, hey, I'm doing this right again. And so, I feel like I was never covering the team. I maybe dropped in as a media person like once or twice in 4 or 5 years, but it wasn't, I never regarded myself as trying to be somebody covering the team. But from the outside, I can tell you that she barked a lot, and it wasn't as tempered as it is now. And, and we can see, I mean, we saw what happened, she's lost it a few times. She got suspended in the finals. She still has that temper. I just think that now it takes a lot more to trigger it in the kind of explosive way that we saw in the past. It's just maturity. I mean, it would probably sort of save 5 minutes by saying, she's just become a lot more mature, and she's had success. She's figured out how that success happened, and now she's figuring out what she needs to be successful now, and using a lot of the same methods, but bringing in some new methods. And I think that's a really fun process if it's successful, and a very frustrating one if it's not. And she had some frustrating seasons, and for the last 3, I would say she's probably had some really fun times. So that's probably what you're seeing.
Yeah, I ask that because I like asking new players the same question. I remember when Maya Caldwell got here at the end of training camp, I kind of asked her after a couple of weeks of just like, what have you noticed, like perception versus reality of Cheryl? And Maya's quote was something to the effect of, every time I saw her before I played here, I wanted to salute her. And then I got here and she's like a really funny, fun person that is like really personable. And I feel like there still is a little bit of that like stigma in the media where, pretty often from opposing beat reporters, you hear like, oh, if you have to cover Cheryl, like that must be difficult. And it's like, it's honestly one of the easiest beats to cover. Like she just tells you exactly what she sees and what's going on. Like
could be Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah, it's very rare to get a coach that's just so honest. If something went wrong, she's like, this is what went wrong. if something goes right, she's like, here's what I did. It makes it incredibly easy, right? I think the other thing just with the Lynx that I wanted to get your perspective on was more on the Olivia Miles, Kayla McBride side of it, as they went up 70 last night. I'm going to throw us over to a quick ad read, though. When we come back, I want to get in that with you, Britt.
Sure.
Well, hello. Thank you, Livestream Andrew. This is Ad Read Andrew. And today we have Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, the presenting sponsor for the Missing Lynx podcast. Firehawk Construction and Remodeling strives to inspire people to follow their ideas, working with respect and understanding to create a quality, tailored result. Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, located in Blaine and serving in the North Metro area, is here to help you with your building and remodeling needs. I can say personally, thanks to Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, I have a beautiful deck in my backyard and countless projects that I started, they finished. Get started on your new deck or remodel today by calling Isaac at 763-710-5686. And we're back with another ad read. This time for Pence Homes, the presenting sponsor of Hitting the Hardwood Network. From the best tools and technology to transparency throughout the entire process, Nate Pence and the Pence Homes team is the top choice for buyers, sellers, and is proud to support you and your home ownership goals. Get started today by calling 612-308-1122 or by emailing info@pencehomes.com. So, Britt, I wanted to pick your brain a little bit more on Olivia Miles because you've just covered so much basketball. Like, have you ever seen a rookie come in and make this type of impact on a team that's this good before?
I mean, it's hard. Part of it is, part of it, literally, when you're this old, you have trouble remembering. But also, I could say that Ricky Rubio really, really wowed Timberwolves fans. He couldn't shoot, and Liv can shoot. He probably defends a little better than Liv did, and they passed about the same. But it wasn't the same thing of elevating an already good team. He came over, Rick Adelman was the coach, and they finished 500. That's a little different. I mean, but I remember Maravich, I remember, Jason Williams, but, in terms of, I remember Stephon Marbury, there are great electric point guards. Bringing in an electric point guard who galvanizes, an already good team, Tony Parker with the Spurs, but, again, not to the, extent that you're seeing here. As Cheryl pointed out the other night, we're talking about the kind of the classic stats of points, rebounds, assists. She got there faster than anybody, rookie or not rookie. The implication being people who played in Europe for 5 years who come over and they're their first year player. Nobody has hit the NBA running as smoothly as she has. And some of that is, it is a good organization that she had around her. She's well mentored, but obviously a lot of the credit goes to her. We saw what that offense looked like when she sat 2 games with that thigh bruise or whatever it was. And so she's had a huge impact, and I'm sure there's somebody I'm missing. White Chocolate, Jason Williams with the Kings was an interesting player, again, but not somebody who elevated that way. Tiny Archibald, you want to go way back. But part of it is very, very hard. The obvious one, I mean, if you wanted to, I don't use this one simply because he redefined the point guard was Magic. Magic, came in and it was the Lakers, but comparing, what Liv Miles is doing to what Magic was doing with Kareem and, that whole team, I guess in some ways it's comparable. a guy whose size, there wasn't a 6'9" point guard before Magic, really, and so that's kind of an unfair comparison. What I can say is that it is really interesting to watch how this group has. I mean, the coaches flipped her the keys to the offense, but this group has bowed to that precedent. And, and I mean, Kayla McBride was always able to get buckets. That's, part of her, nickname and whatever. But what's happened since, in the last 3 games has been, last 2 games at least, but the last 3, I mean, she's getting 28 points a game. She had 10 steals in the last 3 games. I mean, that's and you wrote about her, what she's like, how good she is. But
do you feel like teams are covering her differently the last 5 or 6 games? Because the beginning of the year,
she's always been mugging her, incredibly quick release, and she's always been somebody who has a nose for the basket. The thing I didn't know about her until I started to cover her was how her ability to draw fouls is really, really extraordinary. She knows the rules of the game and knows what incidental contact and what is, objectionable contact in the eyes of the refs, and positions herself and structures her play on the court. I mean, there will be something going on one part of the court, and a whistle will blow, and it's, 20 feet away, 30 feet away, and it's right next to another ref who has seen a foul committed on Kayla McBride. That has value, and it's I think instructive in terms of the way she tries to gain advantages. She's not a great athlete relative to a WNBA template, and yet she's a ferocious competitor, a great shooter. But being able to embrace Liv, and being able, she was kind of asked a question in a roundabout way about Fee the other night, and just seamlessly, said, when Fee comes back, it's going to be incredible. I played with her so many years, and she's so good at doing everything. And there was never any, she reminded me, I mean, I could do this all the time with NBA comps, but Taj Gibson to be somebody who would praise somebody, and you might think that the praise of that would infringe upon the other person, but the way he says it and the way he may include that other person indicates that he's able to praise all around, kind of thing. He never saw, and Kayla McBride never sees addition by subtraction. She sees addition by additions, and she is optimistic about roles, I think. And it is going to be an interesting, that you've won 18 of 24 games without a superstar in your lineup, and that superstar is coming back with a boatload of skills and is going to want to flex them and should flex them. That is disruptive. That's a splash, and there are ripples from that splash. Like I said, I think this team is incredibly healthy in that way, but that doesn't mean there won't be adjustments and intermittent failures to adjust. And so I say all that because somebody like Kayla McBride is an ideal person to be like the 34-year-old, long-term vet who has been around the league, and also is able to mentor a rookie and be a sidekick for a superstar without much effort. It isn't like she has to work hard at blending into both. And so I think that there've been that Liberty game, they really relied on her in the fourth
Mhm.
quarter. It got to be to the point where, if she didn't have the ball, it was to the detriment of the team, and that was crunch time. That's when you really notice who's coming up and who needs to be not coming up at the time. And so I've been impressed. I've been impressed with her, and I know you asked about Liv, but I think that Liv gets incredible plaudits every night, and she deserves them.
Mhm.
But she's in a situation. Cheryl Reeve went out and got her an incredible pick and roll partner, and got her an incredible safety valve from outside, got her an incredible mid-range shooter who's always active, and got her a gritty glue person. If you're a rookie point guard, those are the four things on your menu you want for a complete meal, and so that's a situation that, Liv Miles should be every bit as grateful for being a part of this team as this team is grateful for her to be on it.
It's one. Kayla McBride just seems like she was born in a lab to be a Britt Robinson favorite player. Like everything she does is kind of, shooting, gritty, team first. She is like a defensive minded player. She's probably the best defensive perimeter player on the Lynx. And then there's the personal aspect of it where she's just a really good person. And I just, the comp I always give for K-Mac is she's just like Simone Augustus on the Dynasty teams, where K-Mac, if she was on a bad team, could probably score 26 points a night. But for her, defending and scoring 15 points a night is worth more to her, I think. And that stuff it transfers in a locker room. Like when you have someone that's as accomplished as K-Mac and as talented as her, giving up that much, she regularly plays 35 to 37 minutes, busting her butt on defense. I think if you're a young player like Liv, to have that person be kind of like the role model or mentor, it just sets them up for so much more success than when you're going to a quote unquote bad team and you kind of get handed the keys. I guess just what's your thoughts on that pairing of having Liv and K-Mac together for the next few years?
Well, I think that what's going to be interesting to me is in the playoffs, the Liberty and the Aces is stacked again, I think. And I think both of those teams are fearsome opponents. And so I don't think there's any question now that this team that we're seeing night in and night out is incredibly capable and deserves to be thought of as a legitimate championship contender already. But Asia Wilson, is it 3 out of the last 4 years she's been MVP?
Yeah.
And she's got help. And the Liberty, obviously, between Stewie and JJ and, and Sabrina, that's a team that expects to go far. And it's, I guess what I'm saying is, if this team gets as deep as they did 2 years ago, and they're in the finals, and they either win it or lose it, that's momentum for what this team continues to do. I mean, I guess one of the brighter spots, and I touched on this in the inaugural column I did on the team, was that they didn't break the bank. Natasha Howard was signed for less money than the 4 players who left. And Nia Coffey was signed for half of what Howard got. Nia Coffey is getting $717,000 over the next 2 years, while Heidemann and Shepard are getting significantly more than that, and as are obviously Alana, and there's a fourth one I'm missing who fell by the wayside. But anyway, Heidemann, Shepard,
and Bridget.
Alana
Dejanay
Smith,
and Bridget are the other two that I
Bridget
think
Carlson, and Bridget Carlson obviously got left in the expansion draft, but she wound up getting a max that isn't a super max. And so all these people, their salaries went up tenfold. They were making $120,000 and now they're making $1,200,000. So, and then you have Howard and you have Coffey, and you have a situation where both of them have Coffey's changed teams, I think 6 times or 5 times in 10 years or something. And Howard 6 times in 13 years. And yet they are folded in that same way. The point being, if you get to the finals and you are one of the 2 best teams in the W, and you have a rookie point guard and you haven't had your superstar for half the season, and you've had 2 players signed on in what is now modern times of the new CBA bargain contracts, then, and you've got Hamzova and Kosu and, Dallaire. And I mean, there is a situation for, if not a dynasty, a perpetual championship contention. And I think that is becoming the expectation, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen. It means that there's a distinct possibility it can happen, but we won't know. We won't know until we see it. And a lot of other really good teams will have something to say about it. So my point is, I think if they flame out in one of the first 2 rounds, then that may be a reevaluation, or it may be, greater, but it will. We are talking about this team right now when they are arguably at their peak of a team that's quickening is always more fun to watch than a team that's won it 3 or 4 times already. And a team that unexpectedly ambushes you the way they have this year, without their superstar and with one of the greatest rookies to come along, in the league history. And knowing that you're 18-6 and you're having that superstar coming back, you've already got an incredible amount of goodness, and yet you already have an expectation that there's a lot of added goodness to come. Well, that is a reasonable expectation, but it is not a guaranteed result. And so it will be interesting to see whether this peak level of, if you're a Lynx fan, it is the best of times, because you're thinking about what is to come in addition to what already is. And it's reasonable to think that way, but I repeat, that doesn't mean it's going to happen. A lot can happen. There can be injury luck. There can be bad fits somehow. There can be, who knows? A million things happen to teams that you don't expect. It's the way it goes. The longer I cover sports, the more I realize that we have a tendency to fixate on something and think that it will change less rapidly than it does change. Things change in a hurry. Witness the Lynx. And so, whether or not this fantastic thing stays, who knows?
Last thing I wanted to ask you about was just, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but with Fee coming back, where do you think the biggest, I guess, road bumps or struggles are going to be with this team? Do you think it is going to be like managing more of like the usage and trying to get everybody in a new pecking order? Or do you think the on the court things are going to be the biggest kind of struggle points? Where's your head with that?
I think it's going to be in trying to figure out what is sustainable and what is temporarily good. In other words, what is Fee at her best with these people around her? Because it is still, I mean, she's top 3 MVP candidate. She is the person that you need to structure things around. And then can Miles be everything she can be under that structure? And then you just go down. It's like, and again, I point to the mental health of this team as being a reason to be very optimistic about this, but chemistry a lot of times is pecking order and people knowing their roles and who they are. And I do think that the way the team is shaping up right now, you would have to say, get the most out of Fee is your top priority, get the most out of Liv is your second priority. Obviously, the abiding priority is getting the best out of everybody, but that is what you need most of all. You need to have somebody who's already a superstar in this league operating on all cylinders, and you need an incredibly promising rookie who's already an all-star doing what she does. And then, not for nothing, does that fantastic pick and roll play become de-emphasized? And if that happens, what happens to Howard, who's been this good soldier and has worked their tail off in terms of being an interesting defender and a willing person? What happens to the bench players? I mean, does Dorka drop off the table? Does she get minutes? How does she get minutes? There's just a lot of it's the ripples, I think, more than the splash, because the splash is going to be you've got a superstar back and you've got somebody who has enough talent and ability to recognize how to help that superstar without losing her own identity. But then the ripples from that, I think, may be harder to figure out. And I don't think it's a matter of people being petulant or not understanding or whatever. I just think those adjustments, I mean, Nia Coffey has probably never been happier than she is now. It's certainly statistically that should be what happened. She's in her hometown where she grew up, and she's incredibly vital. She is likely to be the most disrupted of anybody on the roster, I would think. And she's always been somebody who works better when everybody around her has got things taken care of and she can caulk the seams. She recognizes where the seams are. Well, the seams will probably be in different places and she may not be in as much of a position to caulk them. Those kinds of things. And then, if you lose that effectiveness, how much do you lose? And, these are all questions that are, it's going to be fascinating to find out. But I think that, again, that's why you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. Nobody would ever argue that Nafisha Collier coming back is a bad thing, because it isn't. But there will be adjustments, and there will be adjustments that have to be adjusted again, because what you thought was sustainable isn't sustainable.
It's one of the best things about sports is we do kind of get the answer. It'll either work or not work or somewhere in between, and we'll kind of be able to hopefully explain what didn't work or did work as it goes on. But I just think being able to watch Fee and Liv play together, they're also just kind of like, in theory, perfect players next to each other. Like the perimeter player that can shoot from three, work pick and rolls, reads the floor really well, and then just, the paint player that's like Tim Duncan. I mean, you brought up Tony Parker earlier, which Liv has some different skill sets, but like Fee is just so methodical and so polished inside that I just can't wait to see it. I guess what's kind of the thing you're looking forward to most just watching them play together?
Well, looking forward to, I'm looking forward to what the highlights I expect. I mean, I expect they're going to be some beautiful basketball. They're both beautiful basketball players in terms of the way they play the game. And so I'm looking forward to what happens in transition. I'm looking forward to what happens when one recognizes what the other needs to be bailed out and makes the exact move, and that person recognizes what's happening and bails out in a fantastic way that suddenly is really, really good. I'm looking for a recognition by the other of what that person is doing on the court, and the idea, like a light bulb popping in, that enables me to do X. But again, I mean, what I want to say back to that is that people talk about Fee's never played with a natural point guard. Well, that's true. And Fee is a phenomenal passer and distributor.
Mm-hmm.
How much does that get edited, and how much does that force her to go to other aspects of her game, and how much less or more fun is that for her? I mean, these are the things, again, that it is going to be obviously fantastic to watch, but it is also going to be something where you're expecting great things. And if great things happen 60% of the time, that means 40% of the time they're not that great, you know? And so, and those are the occasions where raising the bar, raising the floor, I don't worry about the ceiling with those players. And I actually don't really worry that much about raising the floor, but I do think that the floor being raised is the part that people don't watch or expect. And that will be maybe a little bit a slower process.
That's fair. Britt, that's all I had on the docket today. Thank you so much for doing this.
Sure, my pleasure.
I do want to give you a chance. You're writing for racket.com.
Yes.
Racketmn.com, excuse me. How often are you putting out content? Do you have like a
twice a month? Yeah, twice a month. I'll still I do in-game tweets, you know, one game for Twitter and one game for Blue Sky, going back and forth. It's just a way to have a notebook of what I'm doing, or like when I start to think about writing a column. I don't think about when I write things on social media during a game. What I'm basically doing is just trying to figure out what I'm seeing, and so that it'll be a memory jog if I'm writing a column or going back, or I'll remember, oh yeah, that play happened, and whether or not that was something that was a anomaly, or whether it was something that is an insight by me of something that is important to you know, put in the package of what I feel about how that person plays. So it's kind of a notebook in that respect, but for people who are interested in following along in the course of the game, just as long as you understand that I'll contradict myself over the course of the game. Somebody will be great 1 minute and they won't be great the next minute. And it'll be because I'm trying to figure out, all right, this is what this person did well this time, and this is what this person didn't do well the next time. So there's that, and then the columns, and then it'll be back to the Timberwolves.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Britt. I, again, am so excited that you're on the beat. I can't wait to learn more from you. For anyone that tuned into this a little bit late, it does get posted up on YouTube, X, and Buzzer, BZZR. As soon as we hit end stream here, it will come out as a podcast tomorrow morning, July 15th at 7 a.m. And we will be back after the Sparks game. Terry Horseman from the 9 is going to be joining me to break down the happenings of a camp day noon game, which, Britt, I don't know, West Coast watching a game at 10 a.m., there's not a whole lot better in the world. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to experience.
When I used to live in Seattle, it used to happen. And, you know, you'd watch NFL football at like 10 in the morning. And it's really kind of weird to, you know, to have of course, back then I was out in college or early 20s or something. And, you know, you'd be hungover and eating eggs and watching the NFL and you were half awake. It was very very disorienting.
Meanwhile, I'm over here like, I don't have to stay up past 8 p.m. today. This is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Awesome. Thanks again, Britt, for everyone that tuned in to listen. Appreciate you guys as always. And we'll be back tomorrow after that noon game.